Welcome back to podcast. I think this is number 7. That sounds about right. And I guess we kind of got to continue the winter semester dating saga. There's actually not that many stories. There's only like 4, but they're all pretty good. So I guess we'll just start. So obviously we start with the one that ended last episode, which was about the first Friday. But then I think the very next week was a campus-wide date night. My school does this pretty cool thing where they're trying to encourage healthy dating habits because people are too scared of dating up there sometimes. So we have a campus-wide date night that the whole thing is like, just ask someone. There's a bunch of free activities on campus, and it's right at the start of the semester. So get to know new people, just ask them out on a date, enjoy a bunch of free activities, which is actually a super snazzy idea. So my friend Chris, him and his wife, they wanted to go on a hike because they're training for like this thing they're doing later this year, and that's pretty intense. And so I don't remember what it's called, but it's kind of like an uphill obstacle course thing. So they wanted to go on at least one hike every month, even though it was the middle of the winter. But so they invited me. And they're like, hey, like, get yourself a date. Let's go on this hike. It'll be fun. And I didn't really know very many people yet. But there's plenty of people around me. So there was this girl who sat right across from me at my table in one of my very first classes of the day. And so I just asked her, I was like, hey, my friends want to go on this hike and they want to make it a double date. Do you want to come with me? And she was like, sure, that sounds great. Oh, what was that? It sounded like a firework. Weird. Anyway, distractions aside, she said that sounded great. But then she texted me later that week and she's like, I'm so sorry, something came up. We should reschedule. But I couldn't really reschedule my friend's hike. So I was like, maybe if they go on another one, we can do something. But date night was coming up like the second or third week of the semester. So I was like, hey, do you just want to reschedule to date night? And she was like, oh yeah, that sounds wonderful. So we rescheduled to date night, which I think honestly was a better idea because hiking in the winter can be really cold. But anyway, so we went to date night and we were originally going to meet up with Chris. I started getting ahead of myself. So a couple days before date night, she texted me and she was like, hey, my roommate hasn't had anyone ask her to date night yet, but she really wants to go. Do you have a roommate who doesn't have a date yet? And I did have a roommate who didn't have a date yet. So I was like, hey, do you want to go to date night with us? And he was like, heck yeah, I do. So I texted her and I was like, yeah, my roommate says he would love to. And then blah, 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 texting. And then she texts me and says, hey, do you have like your roommate's like Facebook or Instagram? And could you send it to us? And I was like, that's a little weird, but I guess I'll ask. And I was getting bad vibes, but I asked my roommate and looked really disappointed and he was like, yeah, sure. And so he was getting bad vibes too. But I sent them his Facebook, I think, which he hadn't updated in like forever. And she sent a text back and she's like, how old is your roommate? And I was like, I don't know. I think he's 24. By the way, I was spot on. He's 24. I felt really cool. Anyway, I was like, I think he's like 24. And she sends a text back and says, ooh, my roommate's only 18. She doesn't feel comfortable going out with a guy that old. I was like, ouch, poor roommate. And so I told roommate, and he was like, yeah, figures. It's never a good sign when they ask for your Facebook. I was like, yikes. But then, you know, the girl, she was like, yeah, going out with older men is like really weird. And I was thinking, I just realized I didn't know how old she was, and I didn't know exactly where her line for old people was. And so I sent her a text. I was like, just, you know, making sure we're on like the same page. Like, I'm 22. Is that too old too? And she was like, well, I'm 18 too. I guess 22 is okay. And I was like, well, this is not going to be a fun night. But I was determined for it to be fun anyway. I was going to try really hard. Anyway, so we're getting closer to date night, and we were thinking about meeting up with Chris and his wife, and that was kind of our plan. And but he was warning us. He's like, date night's really busy, so you're going to have to wait in some lines, but like the activities are really fun, so it'll be fine. Just don't go do laser tag, because like the line is just way too long. You won't get to do anything else, and you can do laser tag through the rest of the semester anyway. It's just not worth it doing laser tag during date night. And I was like, all right, I'll keep that in mind. And so we make our way over to date night, and she's like, hey, is it okay if we meet up with some of my friends? And I was like, yeah, sure, because Chris was gonna get there later anyway, so I figured, yeah, we'll just hang out with them, and then when Chris gets here, we can switch groups over, or if we like it, we can stay. It'll be fine. But we meet up with her friends, and they were okay. You know, I didn't really have enough time to form opinions on them yet, but they're like, oh, let's go do, what was it that we went to first? They're like, let's go to bowling. And we got in line for bowling, and after like 5 minutes, they're like, ugh, this line is too long. I don't want to wait here anymore. And so we left. And they're like, let's go do finger painting. So we went over to finger painting, or maybe it was face painting. I don't know. And we went over there, and there was like a lot of people and no open tables, and they're like, oh, I don't want to wait. Let's go somewhere else. So let's go to the skating. So we went over to skating, and we waited in line for like 10 minutes, and they're like, oh, this is too long. I don't want to wait here. Let's go to something else. And we did that for like forever. Just went around. They kept getting impatient and not wanting to wait in lines. And I'm like, guys, like, we're gonna have to wait in a line. There are thousands of people here. Like, anyway, finally they're like, let's go to laser tag. And I was like, if you don't want to wait in a line, you're not gonna want to go to laser tag. From everything I've heard, it's the longest line, and it's not worth it. And they're like, no, laser tag's so fun, it will totally be worth it. I was like, I don't think it will be, but if you guys want to go wait, we can go wait. So we went to laser tag, and we waited in line for like 10 minutes, and they were like, ugh, this line is too long. I don't want to wait here anymore. Let's go somewhere else. So we walked across the gym, and there was soap carving, and they're like, oh, let's go to soap carving. And we got up to soap carving, and there was no line. I was so excited. We got up to soap carving. We went up to the table, and the guy that was like overseeing it, he was like, guys, like, I'm glad you're here. Soap carving is so fun. You're going to want to be here. But at the moment, all of the soap carving tools are being used. But you guys are the only ones in line right now. You're first in line. If you just wait here for like 10, 15 minutes, I'm sure someone else will be done, and you guys are the first ones up. And I'm like, okay, sick. This is awesome. And there was a table full of cookies right next to us. And so we ate some cookies. We were chilling out. And then after 5 minutes, everybody in the group was like, ugh, I don't want to wait here anymore. This is boring. And I was like, no, we're here. We're next. We're first. We just have to wait just a few more minutes, and it will be our turn. Like, there's no line. We are the line. We're the only people here. Like, it's our turn. Just let's wait just a little bit longer. And everybody else was like, no, I don't want to wait. It's too boring. It's like, ugh, I don't want to. And so we left. We walked away from soap carving, and I was so upset. I was like, we're not going to do anything tonight. But there was like this dance thing that was weird. We went to this dance thing. There was like this guy who was like performing, and they were singing. They were just singing, you know. And what was really weird, because they were trying to do a lot of like crowd work, you know, get us hyped and talk to the crowd and blah blah blah, and telling stories, and they kept talking about how they write all their own, like they write their own songs, they've made their own music and blah blah blah, but they never played any of their own songs. They were only like doing other people's songs. Like they did shoot, I don't know any artists, but I recognize some of the songs, but like one of them, I don't remember what they were, but they were not original songs, and they were songs that I've heard before and that I knew were from other artists. And they're like, yeah, we write our own music, like we have our own songs and we've published them, blah blah blah, but tonight we're gonna play this music by other people. And it's okay. Like, it was really weird. And then there's this dating app called Mutual, okay? And they were like, we're partnered with Mutual, so we just want to shout out Mutual, blah 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 blah. But we hear that like all the guys on Mutual don't care about dating, and all they want to do is make out. And I'm like, that's a weird thing to say. And then they continued to talk about like all the bad things they've heard about Mutual. And I was like, you guys are not doing a good job of promoting your partner, you know? Like, yeah, we're partnered with this company, but we're gonna trash talk them the whole time. It was bad. And they're like, we just want to make sure that there's no bad dates going on tonight. And so he turns to like his guitarist and he's like, what's your worst date story? And the guy, he was like, oh, I've got like a really bad, like this was the worst date I've ever had. And I'm like, okay, like I'm down for a bad date story. I've got some of those. So he goes up to the microphone, and this is the story he told. He said, so yeah, I was on Mutual and I matched with this girl and we planned our date, and I was going to take her to dinner, and I go to her house to pick her up, and she opens the door and she's in a wheelchair. And that's where his story ended. That was the bad date. And I was like, first of all, that's really rude. Like, it's, what? How can you say that about someone and just be like, oh yeah, this was the worst date I've ever been on because this person was in a wheelchair? That tells me all I need to know about you. That was a wild thing to say. And also, it was another trash talking Mutual story. I was like, what is with these people? Anyway, and then they sang like a couple more songs, and then they get back to their talking to people, and they the lead like singer guy, he went back to the bad dates, and he's like, I just want to make sure that no one here is having a bad date. And so he like gets real close to his microphone, and he's like, okay, now I want everybody to take their girl by the hand. Which was weird, because I mean, the whole thing about date night is it's just ask someone new, have fun, just like go on a date. Like, yeah, there were a lot of like established couples there, but the vast majority of people there were on a first date with someone they've been talking to for maybe a week, you know? Not quite the holding hands level of relationship quite yet. But he's like, everybody's got to do it. Everybody hold each other's hand. And I looked to my date. I was like, we don't have to if you don't want to. And she's like, well, I mean, may as well. And she looked super uncomfortable, and I was super uncomfortable, and everybody around us looked super uncomfortable. But we were like, okay. So I hold my hand out to her, and she places her hand in mine, and he's like, okay, now look into each other's eyes. And so we give each other this awkward look, and he's like, okay, gentlemen, repeat after me. And we're like, okay. And he leans into his microphone, and he says, I promise that this won't be a bad date. So I'm like, I promise this won't be a bad date. And he's like, and I will treat you with respect and with honor. And so I'm like, I'll treat you with respect and honor. And everybody around us is so uncomfortable, and we're so uncomfortable. I'm like, why are we saying these things? And then some of the things he had us repeat are not things that I'm gonna repeat on this podcast, because they make me uncomfortable. Another worthy note is that this is a pretty religious school, and some of the things he said were not religious and were very kind of concerning. And I like, do you know the audience you're performing for? You know, and the thing is, because we have a sister school, and he graduated from our sister school, another very religious institution, if not more so than ours. I'm like, this guy, he should know exactly what this audience is and exactly what is okay to say and what is not. But you know, he said some wild things that were just super not great, and that I will not repeat on this podcast. It was wild. Anyway, so that happened. And then my date, she turns to me and she's like, can we go somewhere else? And I was like, yes, please. Like, I really want to leave. And so we left, and we grabbed one of the other couples that were in our group. We never met up with Chris, by the way. I don't know what happened to that. Anyway, so we grabbed one of the other couples, and we skedaddled. We did not stay any longer. But we went to some of the other activities, and they're like, oh, let's go to because they had like a video game station. Let's go play the video games. And we went, and we stood there for like 5 minutes, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to wait. This is too boring. Let's go somewhere else. So we went to another activity, and we stood there for like 10 minutes, and they're like, oh, this is too boring. I don't want to wait any longer. Let's go somewhere else. And after that, my date turned to me and she says, I don't think we're going to do anything. Do you want to just take me home? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. And honestly, the 10-minute drive taking her home was the best part of the date, because like we actually had a conversation, because I couldn't have a conversation with her when we were with her friends, because she was talking to her friends and not to me, and we were just going from place to place, not doing any activities. And so like I was basically just doing nothing for like 3 hours, and it kind of sucked. So she said, take me home, and I said, okay. And the 10-minute drive back to her apartment was probably the best part of the date, because like we had a conversation, it was okay. I dropped her off, and then I went home, and my roommate was sitting there on the couch, and he said, how'd it go? I said, not well. And I grabbed a jar of peanut butter, I sat down on the couch, and without me even saying anything, he turned on Gravity Falls. And we watched more Gravity Falls. We watched quite a few episodes that night. And so that was date night. That was not fun. Probably easily the third worst date I've ever been on. Not because it was like, it wasn't her fault, you know. It was just boring, and we didn't do anything. And plus, the singer guy, he made it worse. I hope he doesn't get invited back next year. It was not fantastic. Anyway, so that happened. That was date night. Third worst date probably ever. To be fair, it's hard to beat the other two. And most of my dates are pretty well. So, yeah, anyway. And then the next week, we did actually end up... Oh, I did end up going on the hike with Chris and his wife. But since my date had canceled, I asked one of the girls who played cymbals with me in the drum line. And her apartment was kind of right next to mine. So I just asked her while, like, we were just walking the same direction. So I was like, hey, do you want to go on this hike? And she was like, sure. So we went on the hike and it was okay. It was an all right date. And nothing happened out of it, but that's okay because we became good friends. And she was the first, well, I don't know about the first, but usually the first, because we'd walk home from drumline together 3 days a week, that I would tell her all the tea. She heard all of it. She got the stories before my roommates sometimes. But yeah, so the date itself was okay, but it's the friendship that came out of it that matters. And so that was fun. We're happy for her, by the way. She started dating this guy a month or so ago, and it's going really, really well. So that's good for them. I'm really excited. They're actually fantastic together. So that's been fun to watch. Okay. The next 2 weeks, we're like almost halfway through the semester at this point. We're going through this faster than I thought I would. Maybe I'm just not sharing as many details as normal. Oh, it's because we skipped the whole Kit Kat and the first date story. That makes the rest of it so much shorter. Anyway, yeah. So, every Wednesday night, BYU Idaho has, they have things going on all the time. And every Wednesday, one of those things is country swing dancing. And it's only $3, you know, so super cheap. And it's like, it starts at, I think they have instructions starting at 7, then the actual dancing starts at 8, and then it goes to like 11:30. So it's a good like 3-4 hours of fun for $3. That's less than $1 an hour. It's a pretty snazzy deal. So I went, me and my roommate, not the roommate that I watched Gravity Falls with, but the roommate who I went with to the first Friday. He was wanting to go country swing dancing, and I was like, hey, I was thinking about going tonight. And he's like, cool, let's go. So him and I walk over there. Actually, I think we drove, which I don't know why, because it's really close. Anyway, so we drove over there, and we got there at like 7:30ish. So they were like a good amount through the instruction, but they still had a good amount of time left. And so we got there for a little bit of instruction, and they were doing like they were all in a big circle, and they were learning some, I don't remember what it's called, but one of the, not the kinds of dances that you stay in the same place, but that you move around, in kind of a circle pattern. So they were teaching one of those. So I am there, and there's a girl standing off to the side. So I just go up to her, and I was like, hey, do you want to go hop in? And she was like, sure. So I lead her into the big old circle. We get in our place, and then the guy with the microphone says, okay, now switch partners. Gentlemen, stay where you are. Women, rotate one partner counterclockwise. And so this person who I just met like 2 seconds ago, I was like, bye. I'd see you later, I guess. And so they rotate a partner, and the girl who rotated and came to be my partner was really, really cute. So I was quite excited. So we're learning like the dance together, and we're talking, and it was kind of fun. And she told me what her name was. But we're just going to call her Soup, which will make sense later. So this girl's name is Soup. obviously that's not her real name. That's her, what did I call it last time? Code name? Yeah, code name. I feel like that was really, I'd hear that from all my friends who were girls in like high school and junior high, that you have to have a code name for the boys you talk about. And so that's where I'm getting this idea from, by the way, the code names. Anyway, so this girl's code name is Soup. Well, usually Soup Girl, but I don't want to have to say 2 words the whole time when I can just say 1. But this is Soup Girl, okay? And so we're talking to Soup Girl and having a good time and learning dance. And then they're like, okay, now we're going to learn a line dance. And she's like, do you just want to stand next to each other while we do the line dance? And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds wonderful. And so we're standing next to each other while we're learning the line dance, and we're still talking, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun actually learning the line dance and having, talking to her. And it was going really well. And I wasn't like fumbling all my words. I was like, things were coming out of my mouth properly. All the sentences were proper. I was so proud of myself. But her name was kind of a short name and usually a nickname. So I was like, hey, just curious, what is your name short for? And she told me her full name, and it was the same name as my ex-girlfriend, my first one, the one that's crazy. So I had a little spike of panic. I was like, uh-oh, that's not good. What would be a full name for Soup? Stew? Yeah, I'm like, what's Soup's short for? And she says, oh, Soup is short for stew. And I was like, oh, I dated a girl named Stew. Stew. I don't know if that's right. Anyway, so I was kind of scared for a moment, but I was like, it's fine. It's just a name. We can get over it. It's fine. And so we continued to go through learning the line dance, and then Soup had a friend run up to her and was like, hey, the rest of the group is here. And she grabs Soup's hand and just runs away. And Soup like waves goodbye to me, and they just disappear. And I was like, well, that kind of solves that conundrum, I guess. But I was pretty sad about it, but what can you do? But then the dancing started, and I danced with a few girls, but I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I was kind of really awkward. I'm kind of shy at first, and I didn't know quite how I felt about just asking people I've never met before to dance. But I asked a few girls, and a few girls asked me, and so I was dancing, and things were going all right. And then I'm walking around kind of, standing in new places, and my buddy, my FSY buddy, he's there. I found him, and I go up and I'm like, dude, no way. And we hug and high five and everything. And he's like, I'm so excited to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I'm like, this is awesome. And he introduces me to this girl. And he never said that this was his girlfriend, but I saw them together a lot throughout the semester. And so I'm assuming they were like in a relationship, but it's occurring to me that I never asked. Anyway, we're assuming this is his girlfriend, and maybe at the time this was just one of their first few dates, so it might not have been yet a tighter relationship, but it could have been by that point. I don't know. We were like 4 or 5 weeks into the semester. Anyway, so he introduces me to her, and we're talking, and I'm doing FSY again this summer, and he's doing FSY again this summer, and we're both going back as ACs, which is like the next leadership level up from counselor. Basically, AC is to counselor as counselor is to youth. Oh, and just in case you don't know, FSY it stands for the Strength of Youth, and it's basically just a youth camp. They host these camps all over the country at college campuses, and like the kids get sent over for a week, and we have a lot of fun, play a lot of games, but it's a religious youth camp, and so we talk about like gospel principles and talk about the scriptures, and it's a really great experience. It's really wonderful. I loved working for them, so I'm gonna work for them again this summer, but the next level of leadership up. So instead of interacting with the youth so much, I'll be a mentor to the other counselors, which I will be a little sad not to interact with the youth as much, but I'll still see them a ton. And I'm also getting paid a little bit more than if I was a counselor, and we take those wins. So I'm going back as an AC, and Buddy's going back as an AC. And he's like, I don't know her name, but that's okay, because I'm not supposed to use it anyway. I guess we're just going to call her his girlfriend, because that's what I'm assuming they are. Oh man, it's kind of hot in here. Sorry. I need to roll down my windows. Man, in the wintertime, it was really nice to just sit in my car, because it just stayed cool. But now that it's warming up outside, the car gets kind of hot. Anyway, windows are open now, so if it's like windy, or I'm sitting close by to a highway, so you might hear some cars, but it'll be fine. It should be fine. Anyway, so he's like, oh yeah, and my girlfriend is going to be going to FSY. Like, this is her first year. She's going to be working as a counselor. I'm like, that's so exciting. And so we were talking about FSY for a little bit, and Buddy was like, hey, do you want to learn some FSY dances? And she was like, sure. And he turns to me, he's like, Jonathan, do you want to teach her some FSY dances with me? And I'm like, heck yeah, I do. So we go out into the hallway, and we start teaching her some of the dances we teach the kids at FSY, and we're having a blast. And Soup Girl comes out of the hallway, and she sees me, and she waves, and I wave her over, and I'm like, hey, we're learning FSY dance. We're teaching her FSY dances. Do you want to join us? And she was like, sure, that sounds like fun. And so she's standing next to me, and we're teaching her the dances, and we're teaching Buddy's girlfriend the dances, and it was just fun. We're having a blast. And then like 40 minutes later, Soup Girl turns to me, and she's like, hey, I kind of came out here to find the bathroom, so I'm gonna go do that. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hold you hostage for 40 minutes. Like, go find a bathroom. And so she leaves, and Buddy turns to me, and he's like, so who was that? And I tell him, I'm like, dude, I just met her tonight. Her name is Soup Girl, and well, obviously her name's not Soup Girl, but that's what we're going with. Anyway, so I was like, her name is Soup Girl, and we just met tonight, and it's like, she's really fun, and I think she's really cute. I was like, but I have a problem. And he's like, what? And I say, her, like, Soup is just her nickname. Like, it's like, her full name is the same as my crazy ex-girlfriend, and I just don't know if I can handle that. And he put his hands on my shoulders, and his voice gets real serious, and he says, Jonathan. And he puts up his hand, like pointing his finger, you know, and he says, the scriptures say, send forth. And I was like, you're right. It's in the scriptures. Like, can't argue against that. So he's like, you just gotta send it, my dude. Just ask her. Just ask for her number. Ask her out on a date. It'll go well for you. I was like, well, you can't argue with doctrine. So we kept teaching his girlfriend the dances, and after like 20 minutes, I didn't know where the bathrooms were either, so I don't know where Soup Girl went, but I hadn't seen her come back, so I assumed that she had went back into the dance, and it was getting kind of late anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back into the dance, I'm gonna find her, I'm gonna ask for her phone number, and then I'm kind of tired, so I'm gonna go home. So as I walk back into the gym, my roommate finds me, and he's like, dude, Jonathan, it's good to see you. I met this girl, and I just gotta ask for her number, and then we can go home. And I was like, dude, I just met this girl. I just gotta find her and ask for her number, and then I was gonna go home. And he's like, awesome, cool. So we walked around, and we found his girl, and he asked for her number. She seemed to be pretty stoked about it. I think they ended up going on a couple of dates, but not much came out of it. Anyway, so we found his girl, he got her number, and then we started walking around, and we found Soup. So I went up to her, and this was the most awkward I'd been all night, and I was like, hey, I was wondering if I could get your phone number. And she was like, oh, of course. And she gives me her phone number, and then my roommate and I go home. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. I did not need to eat any peanut butter that night. Just feeling pretty good. And then I texted Soup Girl, the next day, and before I could even ask her out on a date, she was like, hey, do you want to go to the devotional together on Tuesday? And the nice thing, one of the things I really like about going to this college is because it is a religious school. And so every Tuesday morning they have a devotional, which, so they just have someone basically just give a talk to the whole school. And it's pretty nice. It's a nice, just little spiritual hour in the morning every Tuesday. And it's just kind of a nice way to start your day, start your week. So I really like it. Anyway, so she's like, hey, do you want to go to devotional together? And I was like, sure. And the thing about devotional, from what I've gathered, like going to devotional together is it's not quite a date, but it's like obviously showing interest, So it wasn't quite a date, but it was definitely she's saying she's interested, which is, good news for me. So I, so we set that up, and we texted throughout the weekend, and then as Tuesday morning came along, I sent her a text, and I was like, hey, where do you want to meet up to go to devotional together? And she sent me a text saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, something came up and I can't go to devotional. And so in my brain and in my heart, I was like, well, guess that ends that, because so far, every time a girl cancels, like, I hear this, like, from my own experience, from roommates, from friends, like, if a girl cancels on you, then, like, that's usually the end of it. She doesn't really text you back, and that's it. And so I was really sad. But before I could get too sad, she sent another text, and she says, but I would really like to go out to dinner together tomorrow night. And I was like, okay, works for me. So she was like, okay, it's a date then. And I was like, awesome. So we ended up going to a place in Rexburg called Teton Sourdough, which serves soup, which is why we call her Soup Girl. Anyway, so we go, and it was actually really delicious soup. And it was only $13. Oh, I skipped a story. Oh man, okay, we'll get back to that after we finish the story with Soup Girl. Where's my pen? I need to put it on my sticky note. Okay. All right. Anyway, so I'm eating soup on our date, and it was great. Like, talking to her was really fun, and things were going really well. And she's a percussionist, so we were talking about the music program, and we were talking about drumline, because I was in drumline and she was a percussionist. She wasn't in the drumline, but she was in the percussion ensemble, and so we were talking about that a little bit. And then, had some good conversations, and then I walked her home at the end of the night, and we got to her doorstep, and she was like, hey, because it was a Wednesday again, so she's like, are you gonna be going swing dancing again tonight? And I felt so bad because I had so much homework and a lot of it was due like tomorrow. So I had to say like, oh man, like I've got so much homework to do that I can't go this week. But you know, like in the future, like I plan to keep going, and so I'll be there, but just not tonight. And she said, well, that's okay. Just keep in mind, I'm there every week. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So that felt like a pretty good invitation, you know, of, hey, I'm interested and I go to this event every week and you should come so that I can see you. You know, I felt like that was pretty obvious. I may not be the best at recognizing signs and flirtations, but I feel like this was accurate. Okay. So she said, I'm there every week. And I was like, all right, I'll keep that in mind. And then, the next week I was like, hey, since we weren't able to go to devotional together last week, do you want to go again this week? And she was like, oh man, like I have a dentist appointment, during devotional this week. Sorry. I was like, oh, that's fine. But she's like, but I'll be at swing dancing tomorrow. I was like, all right, cool. So Wednesday comes and I text her a few hours before swing dancing starts. And I was like, hey, are you still planning on going swing dancing? And do you want to go together? And she was like, oh, actually, I'm thinking about going to the gym with my roommates. So I don't know if I'm going to be at swing dancing tonight, but if I am, I'll text you and we can find each other. And I was like, oh, okay. Because that felt really weird to me to say, hey, I'm going to be at country dancing every single week. And then the very next week say, oh, never mind, I'm not going. That felt weird. And I was kind of sad about it. And I told my roommate and he was like, that's rough. Like, that's not great. But whatever. But anyway, so I was sitting there and a little bit before, like, kind of like 8 o'clock-ish, because I was doing some homework. And she sends me a text and she says, hey, I'm at swing dancing. Are you here? And so I sent her a text. I was like, oh, I'm just about to finish this homework assignment and then I'll be there, and I'll be there in like 15-20 minutes. And she was like, okay, awesome, sweet. And I actually finished, like, I was on the last question. I may have actually been submitting my homework when I texted her. So I was pretty much immediately done with the assignment I was working on. So I start walking over to campus, and I live right next to campus. And I like this building, like, it's like a 15-minute walk, you know, and so I should be fine. First of all, I overestimated how long of a walk it was, because keep in mind, I was still only a few weeks into the semester and I hadn't really been around campus very much yet. So it's actually like a 10-12 minute walk, even though I thought it was like a 15-minute walk. And then second of all, I was way more excited than I thought I was, because I guess I walked super fast, because instead of it taking me 10 minutes to get there, it took me 6. And so I get there and I realized just how early I'd gotten there, and I felt really awkward because, like, I told her it was gonna take me 20 minutes and I'd just gotten there in 7. And so I was kind of embarrassed. So, but the dancing is on the second floor in the ballroom, but I had entered on the first floor. So I just kind of stood down there and just waited a few minutes. But there was this guy sitting at a table, I think doing homework. And so I just basically walked in the building and then just stopped and stood there by the door and he was giving me weird looks like, what the heck is this dude doing here? Why is he just standing here doing nothing? And so after like 3 minutes, I was like, I feel too awkward. I can't just stand here. Like, I guess I'll just go up. And so I went up to the gym, and I pay my $3 and go over, and I go inside and I look around and I can't find Soup. And I go outside, like into the hallway, and I look around a little bit and I can't find her, but I'm sending her texts and she's not answering any of my texts. And I actually ran into Chris's sister. And I feel really bad about this because she was on a date and I didn't realize it. I just saw Chris's sister, and so I ran up to her and I was like, I need help. Like, and I explained to her, I was like, I feel bad for interrupting her date, but at the time I didn't realize I was interrupting her date, and so I'm sorry. That's on me, my bad. I feel awful. But so I went up to her and I was like, I need help. This girl, she invited me here, but I can't find her, and I don't know if it would be weird to like call her, because like she's not answering any of my texts, but like if I call her, maybe we can find her, because like I just can't find her anywhere. And she was like, okay, like Bubba, calm down. Let's walk through this. Did a girl invited you here? And I said yes. She told me to come here and to come find her. And she said, then call her. She wants you here. She wants you to find her. It's not gonna be weird if you give her a call. And I was like, well, when you put it like that, it sounds so simple and obvious. So thank you. And I walked out into the hall. So that was embarrassing. I feel bad still. So I walked out into the hall and I picked up my phone to call Soup Girl, and right then I got a text from her, and she said, I'm so sorry I didn't see your texts. I'm standing by the door. But the thing is, there are 2 different entrances leading into the ballroom, and then they're also, at the end of the hallway right next to the outside of the building. So there's also a door that leads right outside, because it's on a hill. So I entered from the back side, which means at the bottom of the hill, so I entered on the first floor. But if you enter from the front side, you actually enter on the second floor because you're at the top of the hill. Anyway, so there's a door right next to the ballroom that leads outside. So there are 3 sets of doors. But I mean, like, she's bound to be by one of them. That's what she said. So I walk over to the first set of doors and I look around and I can't find her, and I go to the second set of doors and I look around and I can't find her. I was like, well, I guess she's at the doors that are outside. So I started walking that way, but I feel a hand on my shoulder and I turn around and there she is, and she says, oh my gosh, we almost missed each other. Like, I walked right by you, you walked right by me. That's so funny. But then before I could say anything, she grabbed my hand and she's like, come on, let's go dance. And she dragged me out into the middle of the dance floor in like the middle of a song. I was like, okay, this is wild. But felt really great. I was kind of excited. And we start dancing, and all of my knowledge just left me. Like, not that I'm a fantastic country dancer, but I've done it before, and so I know like a few things, and like, I'm not fantastic, but I can hold my own, but I couldn't remember like anything. And she told me that the week that we had met was her first night ever going country dancing, and so this was her very second night, and so she didn't really know anything. And I was like, that's fine, I can teach you. And as soon as I started to do anything more complicated than the basic steps, just all my knowledge was just gone. And I couldn't remember anything. And she's like, oh, do you know how to do the princess dip? And I was like, yeah. And then I couldn't figure it out and I couldn't remember how to do it. She was like, oh, do you know how to do the window? And I was like, oh yeah, I know that one. But then I couldn't remember how to do it, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, oh, well, do you know this one? And she'd say no. And I was like, okay, I'll teach it to you. And then I couldn't teach it to her, and I couldn't remember how to do it. And that happened like 5-6 times. And finally I was like, I swear, I know how to do this. I know how to dance. I'm forgetting all of it right now, and I don't know why. And she's like, oh, that's okay. My friend's here. She's really good. She can help us. So she grabs my hand, and she starts leading us around trying to find her friend. And I felt kind of like, holding her hand was like interesting. But I wasn't really holding her hand, because really she was just leading me around. So I was trying not to think of it as she's holding my hand. But then we find her friend, and we stop right in front of her, start talking to her. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not being led around anymore. So I let go of Soup's hand. But Soup doesn't let go, and she holds my hand just a tiny bit tighter. And I was like, maybe she just doesn't realize I'm letting go. So I loosened my grip, more, and pulled my hand a little bit, but she just kept holding my hand. So I was like, oh, I guess we really are holding hands. So we sat there talking to her friend for a few minutes, holding hands the whole time. And then she was like, okay, her friend was like, all right, let's go out into the hall, and I'll teach you some things. And I was like, okay, awesome. So we go out into the hall, and Soup Girl continues to just hold my hand. And as we're following along, but whenever we aren't doing like the moves with her friend, we were holding hands, and it felt pretty good. I was pretty excited. And I had been talking to my roommate earlier that day. I was talking about Soup Girl, and I was like, she's really fun. Like, she's really cute. Like, yeah, we've had to cancel, Devotional a couple times, but she asked me out to dinner, and then she asked me to come swing dancing. And, so like, I feel like things are going well, and she's a lot of fun. And he's like, oh, well, do you want to like get in a relationship with her? And I was like, I don't, it's kind of fast. We've only known each other for like a week. I don't know if I could get into a relationship right now. That's really fast. And he was like, oh, but do you want to like see her more often? I was like, yeah, I really do. Like, seeing her, once a week at swing dancing would be, fine. But I also want to do like more than just dancing, and I want to do some other activities with her, but I don't want to like overwhelm her, like I don't want to be, asking her out every single day, and I don't want to like scare her off, and I just was struggling to figure out how to convey that. I was like, how do I see her more often without like being weird about it, and without overwhelming her? And my roommate, he was like, well, you could just tell her that. Just talk to her about it. And I was like, oh, well, when you put it like that, it seems so simple and makes so much sense. I guess I'll do it. So I kind of decided, I was like, okay, at the end of the night, I'll talk to her and be like, hey, I want to see you more often. Like, I want to do more than just country dancing, but I don't want to overwhelm you and do too much every week, because I'm not trying to get into a relationship yet, but like I really have enjoyed our time together, and want there to be more of it. So I was like, hey, I'll talk to her about that tonight. Anyway, so we're learning the dancing from her friend. We do like maybe a song together. And then Soup Girl's phone starts ringing, and so she looks at it and she's like, oh, this is my roommate. This is really important. I have to take this. So she steps out and starts talking on the phone. And so I have that really awkward conversation with her friend, like, nice to meet you. What's your name? And she's like, how do you know Soup Girl? Yeah, because I asked her, I was like, are you guys like friends, roommates? And she was like, oh, we work together. we work together at the same place at the same time. And I was like, oh, okay, fun. And she's like, what about you? How do you know her? And I was like, oh, well, we met last week at swing dancing and here at country dancing. And she says, you're drumline guy. And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that would be me, which on one hand was a little weird because I've never associated myself with drumline as like an identifier, because I play brass. I play like trumpet and French horn, and I've played the cymbals in the drumline, but I've never really had that as like my identifier. So being called drumline guy was like a little weird, but at the same time, I had a code name, and as I hear, those are pretty good news. So I was like, yeah, I guess that would be me. I'm drumline guy. So yeah, that was fun. And so I had a short little conversation with her coworker, apparently. And then Soup Girl comes back from her phone call, and she's just saying, oh, like, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to dip out so early, but that was my roommate, and she's kind of having a medical emergency right now, so I gotta go. And I was like, that's not great. I hope she's okay. And she's like, oh yeah, she's fine. She just, has seizures sometimes, and wants someone there to comfort her, because after she has one, it's kind of a scary thing. And I was like, that doesn't sound like she's doing just fine, but okay, whatever. But so I was like, well, do you want me to walk you home? Do you want me to walk home with you? And she was like, well, I drove here, but you can walk me to my car. And I was like, well, it's good enough for me. So we start walking out there, and first of all, of course, I make sure her roommate's doing okay. And we have a short little conversation about that, and her roommate's just fine. Like, her seizures aren't severe. She just, had a mild one and kind of freaked her out, so she just didn't want to be home alone, Apparently they weren't even concerned enough to like worry about like going to the hospital or anything, so I guess she was doing fine, but that's kind of a wild thing to hear about. Anyway, so of course I made sure that her roommate's doing okay. But I go... Yeah, so I start walking her out to her car, and we get, like, as we finish kind of making sure her roommate's okay, and then as we get to the door, I started to bring up what I wanted to talk about, I was like, hey, so I wanted to talk to you, and then and then she almost ran into the pole that's in the middle of the doors, and then I almost ran into it, and so we just laughed about that, and that's silly, and then she started talking about something else, and just told a short little story, and then we start walking down the stairs, and I start bringing it up again, like, hey, I want to talk to you. And then we both almost trip over the stairs. So then we laugh about that and, make sure we're okay. And then we continue walking, and she starts talking again. And then she finishes up what she was saying. And so it's my turn again. And I was like trying to bring it up again. And then as soon as I start talking, there's a wire just going across the middle of the sidewalk. I don't know why there's a big old wire outside, but there was. And we both tripped over the wire and almost like fell down onto the ground. So then we stand up and, make sure we're each okay. And, we laugh about that, like, oh, that's so weird. That's like the third time. And then she starts talking again. And we keep walking, and I'm like, I really need to talk to her about this thing, but like I can't just interrupt her, and so, but then she finishes, and so I start talking again, and then we both trip over the curb to get into the parking lot. Like, we're walking off the sidewalk into the parking lot, and we both tripped over the curb. And so we get up from that, and we're like, oh my gosh, that was so silly, 4 times in a row. What, like, ridiculous. And she starts talking again, and I lose my opportunity once again. And we finally get to her car, and I hadn't talked to her yet. I hadn't brought up what I wanted to talk to her about. And she, we get to her car and she's like, well, this is me. And I literally, I panicked. I panicked so hard because I didn't want to keep her from going to her roommate who was obviously needed her help. But I also needed to talk to her about this thing. And this is very much an in-person kind of conversation. And I didn't know when I'd see her in person again. And so I panicked. And what, out of my mouth, the only thing I said, wait, stop. and she looked kind of startled. She's like, what? I was like, sorry, that came out wrong. I want to talk to you about something. And obviously, you've got to go. You got to talk to your roommate, but this will just be quick. But if you got to go, you got to go. But if it's okay, I just had something I wanted to talk to you about. And she's like, oh no, that's fine. I can spare 2 minutes. That's all right. And so I was like, okay. And it stumbled through all my words. Everything came out just horribly. And I was like, well, so I've really liked talking to you and getting to know you. And it's been lots of fun. I think you're a great person. I want to see you a little more often. I'm not saying I don't know, but I don't want to overwhelm you, or I don't want to do too much. And so I was like, if once a week is at swing dancing, if that's good, or if you want to maybe get together twice a week and see, I want to talk to you more. I want to see you more often. But if that's too much, so that's okay. Let's go at whatever pace. I don't want to go too fast. And anyway, yeah. And that, honestly, what I just said was probably more coherent than how it came out to her. And she kind of looked like this conversation was coming out of nowhere. But I was like, but you've got to go. You got to go help your roommate. So you don't have to come up with, think about it. Go text me later, tomorrow, it'll be fine. And she's like, okay, I'll text you tonight. And I was like, okay. And so she got in her car and she left, and I walked back toward the country dancing, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to. And so I turned and I walked home. And I got back into my apartment, and my roommate was there, and he's like, so how'd it go? Did you talk to her? And I was like, kinda. And he's like, oh, what does kinda mean? And he sits down and starts pulling up Gravity Falls, and then gets back up and keeps making himself dinner as I just continue to tell him the story. And then my other roommate and his girlfriend come over, and they sit down on the couch, and they're like, whoa, this sounds like quite the story here. And I told my other roommate about Soup Girl. He'd heard about Soup Girl before. So I was like, oh, I saw Soup Girl tonight, and I'm talking about Soup Girl. And he's like, oh, Soup Girl. And we were calling her Soup Girl for reals. I wasn't using her real name. I was calling her Soup Girl. I was like, oh yeah, I was talking to Soup Girl. And he was like, oh, Soup Girl. And his girlfriend was like, who on earth is Soup Girl, and why do you call her Soup Girl? And so I was like, well, do you just want the whole story? And she's like, yeah. So I start telling the whole story, from the beginning, about meeting Soup Girl and going to dinner and eating the soup and all the things. And then I get back to tonight, and I'm talking about the swing dancing and the forgetting everything, and then talking to your friend and holding her hand. And then the conversation and all that, and just how horribly it went. And I was like, so I think I fumbled the bag. I think I messed up. And my roommates were both like, well, it sounds like it went okay. And she held your hand. That's a good sign. You guys were holding hands. This seems like it's going well. But I turned to, roommate's girlfriend, and I was like, what do you think? Because obviously when talking about girls, another woman's opinion is going to be good. So she starts talking, and she's going off for like 20 minutes. And she's like, no, like what you're doing is like so great. She's like, it sounds really great. Sounds like you guys have had a really, like a great couple of interactions, and, you know, your date went well. And even when she had to cancel on you, she replanned, you know, rescheduled, and sounds like she really wants to spend time with you, and things are like, and your conversations seem like they're going really well, and it seems really nice. And she's like, and plus, like, she held your hand, like, she's not just gonna hold your hand for no reason, and sounds like that's going really well, and she obviously wants something to happen. And I was like, but like, just the way I talked to her tonight, I'm worried that I just fumbled it all. And so like, what do you think? And she was like, well, like, honestly, like, the nervousness, of course you sounded nervous, but it's kind of endearing, and like, it's really sweet, and a lot of girls are gonna, you know, they're gonna really be into that because you're nervous, and it's, you know, it's a good, like, obviously you're nervous because you like her, and so she's gonna find that really sweet, and most girls are gonna find that really sweet. So I think that actually probably works in your favor, which I'm still having a hard time figuring out, but I guess sort of makes sense. I feel like fumbling all my words and being super nervous and awkward is not supposed to work in my favor, but this is like the second time I've been told in however long that it works. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyway, and she's like, plus you talked to her about it, and you were super, you know, maybe it came out kind of mumbly, but you were super straightforward. You know, you said, I want to see you more. I want to talk to you. I'm not ready to like jump into a relationship. That's not what I'm trying to do, but I want to see you more often. And well, I don't know if I ever said that I'm not trying to jump right into a relationship, but I said I want to keep going on dates and seeing where this goes, you know. And so anyway, so roommate's girlfriend was like, you told her like everything, and she gets frustrated, and she says, I can't tell you how many guys are just dumb and stupid and never say anything about what they're feeling or what they're thinking, and it takes so much effort just to get it out of them, just what they want. But here you are, you know, second date, saying it right off the bat, saying, this is how I feel, this is how I think things are going, and this is kind of what I want to happen. And she says, that's perfect. Like, any girl would give anything to have a guy just be straightforward about it. So she was praising me, and I felt pretty good. I was like, wow, what a great guy I am. I'm quite the catch. And so I was feeling pretty good. I was like, okay. So I was feeling a lot better. You know, my roommates were saying that I did well, that it sounds like things are going okay. And roommate's girlfriend was saying that I was doing really great. So I was like, hey, like, this is good. This is fantastic. And they're like, so she said she'll text you tonight. I was like, yeah. And they're like, okay, well, we have plans, so we're gonna go, but let us know how it is. And they stand up and they leave, and my other roommate, he sits down on the couch and he says, well, has she texted back yet? And I open up my phone, and there's a text from Soup Girl. I was so excited, and I opened it up, and it said, hey, Jonathan, I've really loved, you know, like, I agree. It's been really nice getting to know you and to talk to you, and I've had a lot of fun being around you. But I'm not interested in dating you anymore. Ouch. I was so sad, and I just felt so defeated. And I was like, and I told my roommate what the text said. And I said, well, I was so confused. I was like, why would she hold my hand and then break it off the same night? Just doesn't make sense. It was all confusing, and I didn't know what was going on. And I was like, girls are stupid. They're confusing. It's not worth it. And so I got up and I grabbed a jar of peanut butter, and I sat down on the couch. And my roommate and I finished season 1 of Gravity Falls that night. It took us like 5 episodes, which is a good like 3.5 hours of TV. And I ate almost a half of a jar of peanut butter. Peanut butter has really become my comfort food. So I just ate half of a jar of peanut butter and watched 3.5 hours of Gravity Falls. Anyway, so that's how that went, and that was okay. But now, okay, the story that I forgot. We got to go back and do that one. So this was actually from week 2 of the semester. So first Friday was week 1. This story was week 2. Week 3 was the original hike. And then week 3 was the original hike, but then ended up being date night. And then week 4 was the rescheduled hike. And then week 5 was when I met Soup Girl, and week 6 was where we just finished our story with Soup Girl, when she held my hand and then said, "Never mind, I don't want to date you." Anyway, so going all the way back to week 2 of the semester, going all the way back to week 2 of the semester, actually week 1. So I was playing with the university band, and normally I play trumpet or French horn, but there were a lot of trumpet players. There were 17, which is way too many, and there were like 6-7 French horn players, which is also a lot, and this is the non-auditioned group, so it's kind of just let people in, which is why there were so many trumpet players. And so I was like, well, I'm not dealing with that. And so I went to the director and I was like, hey, I play trumpet, I play French horn. Those sections are kind of full. I'm like, I do other brass, but not a ton. Do you want me to do anything else? And he's like, do you want to learn how to play euphonium? I was like, sure, I'd love to learn how to play euphonium. So on a Friday, I got a euphonium and then auditioned for chair placements that day. And so as I was in the hallway, with the other euphoniums and the tubas, and, kind of just chatting, meeting a couple of them, and then did auditions. And I actually got 3rd chair, which I feel pretty good about, because there were 5 euphonium players, including me. So to literally having never played the euphonium before and then getting 3rd chair is pretty good. Especially because all the other euphoniums have played, and they've been playing since high school. And granted, one of them had been on his LDS mission for 2 years, and so he hadn't played in a while, but he was still a euphonium player, and I was not, and I beat him. Yes. That's not important. I just feel good that I was 3rd chair. Anyway, so now week 2, Monday, we're in rehearsal that day, and I'm sitting there with the euphoniums, and I'm talking to the 4th chair, and I almost said his name. I'm trying to get better at that. But so I'm talking to him, and the tuba player behind us, she's talking to us too, and so the 3 of us are kind of chatting, and we ended up, the 3 of us, being kind of a group for the rest of the semester, talking, and anyway, so after rehearsal was over, we're putting away the chairs, putting away the music stands, and the tuba player comes up to me and she's like, "Hey Jonathan, I've got a really important question for you." I was like, "Oh, okay, shoot." And she says, "Have you recently gotten a haircut?" I was like, man, is it that obvious that I need a haircut? I was like, no, I haven't. I really need to, though. I've been meaning to find a time to go this week, but I just haven't yet. And but like, no, I haven't gotten one recently. And she says, "Okay, here's my phone number. Here's my apartment. Here's my address. Come over tonight, 6 o'clock. I'll cut your hair for you." And I was like, okay. Sure. And then, we part ways, go to our other classes, and I go home that afternoon, and I'm talking to my roommates, and I explained to them what happened, and I was like, I don't I don't think it's a date, but, she gave me her phone number and her address and, told me to come over, and kind of like feels like maybe a date, but I don't think it's a date because what kind of a date is getting a haircut? That's not what I'd expect, And they were like, oh, well, I mean, free haircut, take what you can get. If it's a date, if it's not, it's not. And I was like, fair. And then my other roommate came in, the one with the girlfriend. He came in and he's like, what you talking about? And I tell him all about it. And he's like, oh, well, if the haircut goes well and you guys are vibing, then ask her to dinner and make it a date. And I was like, yeah, fair enough. So anyway, 6:00 comes around and I follow the address. I go up to her apartment and, knock on the door, and she opens it up, invites me inside. We sit in her kitchen because the bathroom was like behind the bedrooms, and I don't want to go into their bedroom area, so sat in, because they had actually a really big kitchen, really open. So sat kind of in the middle of the kitchen, and she gave me a haircut, and I helped her sweep it up after and everything, of course. But so given the haircut, she's talking to me, and we're having a good time, and it's it's fun. We're having nice conversations, and all her roommates are there, and they're all talking and chatting away with us. And before we finish my haircut, they're like, hey, we're all gonna go play pickleball. When you're done with your haircut, feel free to come join us. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. And so all her roommates leave, so it's just me and her, and she finishes giving me the haircut, and it looked pretty good, pretty good. Especially not gonna complain about a free haircut. So that was sweet. Anyway, but yeah, she did great. It was a good looking haircut. And I still don't know if this is a date or not. I don't know. I was confused. So we she's like, oh, well, do you want to go play pickleball? And I was like, sure. So we go and we walk to campus, and we're walking around, and we go to where the pickleball courts are, and not only are her roommates not there, but nobody is there. Nobody was playing pickleball. So we went to like the other gym, and there were some other courts, and we walked past the outdoor courts, and they weren't there either. And like there was, not only could we not find her roommates, we couldn't find anybody on the entire campus playing pickleball. And we're just walking around and talking, and after I went home and told this to my roommates, they're like, dude, it was a setup. Her roommates, first of all, left you alone together, but then got you guys to go on a long walk and have no one to join you. And so it was just you guys walking alone, talking. And I was like, oh, that would make sense. So I think I got set up, and I think it really was a date. But anyway, so besides that, so we're walking around campus, can't find anybody. But we're walking back toward her apartment and are getting close to my car, and I was thinking, yeah, I guess this is going kind of well, and I was starting to feel, if this was a date, I had no idea. I wasn't sure. But if it's not a date, I feel bad for letting her give me just like a free haircut. So I turned to her and I was like, hey, I feel kind of guilty letting you give me a haircut for free and all. So do you want to go for dinner? I can pay you back that way. And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. And so we go and driving around, and I was like, I don't really know anywhere in Rexburg yet, because this is, again, week 2 of the semester. I was like, I don't really know anywhere. Where do you like to eat? Where do you want to go? And she's like, oh, I kind of like going to Denny's. So we went to Denny's, and it was fun, and the food was all right, and we were like the only ones there because it was pretty late. It was like 10:30 at night when we got there. Well, No. It was like 10, which also makes me just realize how long we were walking around campus, you know? I mean, she wasn't exactly a speedy haircutter, so the haircut probably took an hour or more. But even so, that means we were walking around campus for like at least 2-3 hours. Anyway, so we're eating dinner at Denny's and it's okay, but we're like the only ones there. And then the waiter was super funny and super like he was funny and he was kind and was giving us really good service. But like I ended up getting an omelet because like an omelet sounded really good. So I told her, I was like, oh man, like an omelet sounds really good. And she's like, oh yeah, like an omelet does sound kind of good. And she was like, oh, I think I'm going to get the French toast. But then the waiter comes over and he, was like, oh, what's your order? And she goes first and starts ordering French toast and she's like, you know what? Never mind. Was it French toast? It might have been something else. Anyway, but she was like, you know what? Actually, an omelet does sound really, really good. I scratch what I said. I'm going to get an omelet. And he's like, oh, okay, and he says, oh, do you want avocado on top of that? And she kind of thought about it and she's like, does it cost any extra? And he's like, yeah, it's a little bit extra, but not much. And she's like, well, I don't really want avocado. I'm okay. And he turns to me and he's like, okay, sir, what do you want? And I say which omelet I want. And he says, do you want avocado on top? I was like, sure, give me the avocado. And then, the girl, by the way, her code name is Haircut Girl. Anyway, so Haircut Girl was like, I guess, yeah, I'll take some avocado too. And so the waiter turns to me and he's like, I see what you did there. The lady wanted some avocado but didn't want the cost extra, so you ordered the avocado to let her know what's okay. It's very smooth of you, sir. I see what you did there. That was very smooth. Good job. And I was like, dude, don't give away all my secrets. And he's laughing and he's like, I bet even if she didn't order the avocado, you would have given half of yours to her, wouldn't you? And I was like, you're giving away everything, man. And so we're laughing. It was really funny, which he was right. That was my plan. That was my plan. If she didn't order any avocado, I was going to give her half of mine. Anyway, so he totally saw right through that. But so we were laughing about it. It was fun. And he was like that all night. He's really funny. Anyway, so we eat our food and we sit there and chat and for like another like hour or so. And then, finally we pay and everything. And I've of course got to give him a good tip because we were the only ones there. We were kind of, taking up the whole restaurant and, he gave really good service and he was also really funny. So I was like, this guy deserves a tip. And guys, the total, because like each omelet is like $18 and then plus tax brings us up to like $40. And then a good tip is like actually tax brought us up to like 40 some odd dollars. And then I guess the omelets were a little more than 18. They were like $19. Anyway, so like $38 and then plus taxes, a little more than $40. And then a good enough tip that I felt was appropriate, brought us up to like $50. I was like, $50 for dinner. That's more than I spend on groceries a week. It was so much money. I was never, ever going to Denny's for a date ever again. That's what reminded me that I needed to tell this story because I went to Teton sourdough with Soup Girl and dinner for both of us cost $18, which was less than buying one omelet at Denny's. And so it was then I was like, never again. I had already decided I was never going to Denny's for a date again, but right there I made a commitment. I was like, never ever again. Never. Silly, don't do it. Never going to Denny's for a date ever. Anyway, that's what reminded me I forgot to tell this story. Anyway, so, but it was good. It was all right. I just wish I hadn't spent $50 on it. Anyway, and then, anyway, so we went back to her apartment and, I started telling a story and then, she started telling a story right as we got to her apartment. So I walked her back up to her apartment and she was still talking. And so she invited me inside and we sat down on her couch and, she continued telling the story and we talked for a little bit longer. And then finally it was 1:00 in the morning and I was like, I gotta go home. I can't be here in the middle of the night. But you know, this was fun. I had it was a blast. And so I got up and I drove home, which is the only other time that I was out so late during the semester. There was this time when I was out till 1, and then the backwards love triangle that I was out until 2:30. Those are the only times. Every other day I was home 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30 at the latest. Anyway, so I get home at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and all my other roommates are asleep. So I crash, you know, and the next morning everybody's asking me how it goes, and like, honestly, it was great. I feel kind of guilty because, you know, she's not a bad looking girl. She's cute, she's pretty, and she was fun. Like, I enjoyed the 7 hours we spent together on our first date. Yikes. That's a long first date. Anyway, like, it was great, but like, it was fun, but we just didn't quite vibe that way. And so I was like, you know, I don't think I'm interested in anything more. But like I said, we continued to be friends through the rest of the semester, and me, her, and the other euphonium player were kind of a tight little group during rehearsals, and that was fun. But I get the feeling that she really thought that date went well, which it did go well, but I think she still kind of had feelings for me for a while, and so I felt kind of guilty about that, and I didn't know how to like tell her that I didn't feel the same way. But I never asked her out on another date, and she never asked me out on another date. And then at the end of the semester, at our last concert, she introduced us to this guy who was her boyfriend, and they'd been dating for like 2 or 3 weeks. So problem solved, everything's okay. Anyway, yep. So that was Haircut Girl. Anyway, the rest, anyway, so now fast forwarding to after Soup Girl, and the rest of the semester was okay. So like week 6, I don't think anything happened week 6. And then week 7, I may have asked a girl out, but no, week 7, I don't remember anything happening on week 7. So yeah, week 6 was the end of Soup Girl, and then week 7 was nothing. I don't think anything happened week 7. And then week 8, something. I don't remember what exactly happened week 8, but it obviously wasn't important enough to my brain to keep it in mind. I don't think it was anything special. I think I just asked maybe a girl out on a date, and she said no. Or she was busy. I don't know. Anyway, not important. Week 9. Just accidentally locked my car, but that's probably not a bad thing. Week 9. There was this girl who, she was in my elementary education class. I'm an elementary education major, by the way, for those of you who don't know. But so in one of my classes, which is our instructional method class, so it's all about learning how to like put together lesson plans and stuff. So in that classroom, we had assigned seating, which sounds lame for a college classroom, but it wasn't so much assigned seats as it was assigned tables. So we were put together in tables, and we had to sit with those same people every day, because the whole purpose was putting together lesson plans and working with the other teachers in your subject area or in your grade level. So it was to put us in a situation that was like that, you know. So the people at my table were my quote unquote grade level, and so we'd work together to like make lesson plans and stuff throughout the semester. So it was technically assigned seating, but it had a very good purpose, so it wasn't as weird as it sounds. Anyway, and that's the same class that I asked out the girl to date night because she sat right across from me. So that was kind of awkward for the rest of the semester because we continued to just sit right across from each other, and she like didn't talk to me for the rest of the semester, which was kind of weird, but whatever. So that was kind of awkward. Anyway, but so my table was kind of near the door, and then I was facing the rest of the classroom. And on the other side of the classroom, there was this other table, and there was this girl that was really, really cute. Super cute. And I noticed her at like the beginning of the semester, but like didn't want to do anything about it. I don't know. I feel really weird asking out a girl that I've never talked to before, you know? And I didn't have an excuse to talk to her because I couldn't sit next to her in class because we had to stay at our own tables. And so I just really didn't do anything. But like after week 8 goes by and man, I really think I asked someone out, but I can't remember who it is or what happened. I think Chris wanted to go on another hike, and so I asked. Oh yeah, it was one of the other cymbal players. It was one of the other cymbal players that I was like, hey, dude, like my friend wants to go on a hike. He wants a double. I don't have anyone. Do you want to go? Because it was another just like, I'm not interested in this girl. Just my friend needs a double date. Let's go. And she was like, oh man, I'm busy on Saturday. That sucks. But like next time maybe. And that's what was week 8. Anyway, so week 9, I was talking to the rest of the cymbal players, and I was like, kind of want to, like, just because they hear all my tea, because most of the other cymbal players were girls, and a lot of them kind of lived the same direction I did. So the first girl, her apartment was right next to mine, so we walked home the whole way together, and so she heard like all of it. But the other cymbals, like they're always really interested in the dating tea, and so they'd ask like sometimes like before rehearsal or after rehearsal, so they heard some of it too. Anyway, so they knew all my dating tea, and I was like trying to decide, and but so I mentioned the girl from my class, and I was like, like she's really cute, but I just don't know how to start a conversation. And they're like, well, just like talk to her. And I was like, well, like I'd like to, but we don't sit in the same area. And they're like, well, then just leave class at the same time she leaves class and start a conversation as you walk out the door together. All you've got to do is say hi and learn her name. And I was like, oh, that's when you put it that way, it sounds so simple. It sounds so obvious. Makes sense when you put it like that. And so I was like, okay. So week 9 of the semester, I was like, okay, yep, we can do this. We can do this. But that was kind of like Wednesday, and then we had rehearsal again on Friday, and I was like, okay, next week. So week 9 didn't really have anything important dating-wise happen. It was mostly just the cymbals like hyping me up and be like, okay, like ask out this girl, ask out any other girl, just like keep going on dates, like you're doing really well. I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah. Anyway, so week 10, I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna ask her out. So we had class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So on Monday, I was like, okay, my goal is just to talk to her and to learn her name. And sitting there, and class gets over, and I get kind of, nervous, and I stand up, and she starts walking out the door, and I start walking out the door, and like she's right there, and I panicked, and I said, nope, too scary. And so I walked past her, and I left, and I went to class, and I didn't talk to her. So I was like, oh, that's silly. And the thing is, like, drumline was also Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so I failed that morning, and then went to drumline that night, and they're all like, how'd it go? And I was like, not well. I panicked. I said, no, I didn't do it. I left. And then of course I'm talking to my roommates too, and they're like, just do it, dude. Just like talk to her, learn her name, ask her out, like you'll be fine. And I was like, okay. And so on Wednesday, I was like, let's try this again. Try again. We can do this. And so class gets over, and we get toward the end of class, and my group gets done with the project we were working on. And so they all pack up, and they all stand up and leave. And I pack up all my stuff, put everything in my backpack, you know, and I'm sitting there, and everybody else on my half of the room gets up and leaves and walks out of the classroom. But like the other half of the classroom where the cute girl is still like sitting, and then her and her group especially are like chatting and talking and like laughing. And so I'm sitting there like completely alone on my half of the classroom, and I just feel really weird. I'm like, it looks really weird for me to just sit here and just wait for this girl like this. I feel weird. I can't do it. And I got up and I left. And then I went to drumline that night, and all the cymbals were like, did you do it? Did you do it? And I said, nope. I didn't. I got freaked out again. I couldn't do it, and I left. And they were like, oh, come on, man. Like, Friday. You got to do it Friday. It's your last chance this week. And I'm like, oh, we've got like 4 more weeks left of the semester. And they're like, no, do it now. And I was like, okay. And of course, I'm talking to my roommates too, and they're the same thing. They're like, come on, dude, just like ask her. Like, just get her phone number. That's all you have to do. I was like, okay. So Friday, I was determined. And I kind of reflected back on the semester. And, you know, my group tends to pack up really fast because we're not... The other girls at my table aren't super talkative. And then, of course, there's the girl that I asked out on the date, and then she hasn't talked to me since. So that kind of puts a damper on any conversations we have. So my group just doesn't talk much. We do our work, we get done, they leave. And then cute girls group is super friendly with each other. They're talking all the time, so they always pack up and leave after I pack up and leave. So I was like, okay, easy solution. We're just gonna pack up really, really slow. So class starts to get over, everybody's packing up, putting their stuff away. And so I've got like 6 tabs open on my computer, so I close them each individually one by one, and then I close my laptop all nice, and I set it down on my table. And we had like these name tag things that at the beginning of the semester, like we were kind of using to learn each other's names, and our professor was using to learn our names. But then we also took notes in the name tags throughout the semester, so we still had them on our desk. So I put my name tag away, and I set it, I fold up my name tag all nice, and I put it on the center of the table, and I make sure it's centered and that the edges are parallel with the edges of the table. And I shut my computer, and I look up, and the girl is standing up, pushing in her chair, and is putting her backpack over her shoulder. And I started to panic. I was like, I'm gonna miss my chance. So I didn't even close my notebook. I just threw it in my backpack, threw my computer in there, like stuffed like my earbuds into the bottom of my pocket. I didn't even put on my jacket. Like, I stand up, put my backpack on one shoulder, my jacket on the other, push in my chair, and I start walking out the door as fast as I can without making it look like I'm rushing. And I walk out kind of like 1-2 steps behind the girl. And we get to the steps because we're on the 3rd floor of the building. And I'm about to like talk to her. And then I had this like flash in my brain. Flashback? But it's not a flashback because it hasn't happened. I have this scenario just pop into my brain because we're standing at the top of the stairs, and I get her attention, and you know, and she doesn't know who I am, and so she gets surprised and accidentally trips and tumbles down 2 flights of stairs from floor 3 to floor 1. And I can't do that. I can't risk, you know, watching her tumble down the stairs, and it will be my fault. Can't startle her. So I just, you know, keep walking down the stairs right behind her, and I feel so weird. I'm like, you look like a creep. You're just following this girl. She doesn't even know you're behind her, and she doesn't know your name, and you don't know hers. And actually, I did know her name because earlier that day, because I changed my goal to just like, okay, like maybe we just start by learning her name, not getting her phone number. And then the girl right beside her, because we were having like a class discussion, and she was like, oh, the cute girl had a good insight, and so she says cute girl's name. And So I was like, I learned her name. That's my goal. I accomplished it. But then I felt really weird. I was like, I think it's actually more creepy if I know her name and she doesn't know mine. So I used that as my motivator to be like, hey, I'm gonna talk to her. But I couldn't talk to her on the stairs because then she'd get startled and fall down and break all her bones. So I couldn't do that. So I just awkwardly follow her down like 2 flights of stairs. Like, I look really creepy. I'm not following. I am following her, but not like in that way. Like, like, and we get to the bottom of the stairs, and there's no more risk. So I step up beside her, and I'm like, hey, like, my name's Jonathan. Nice to meet you. And we start talking, and and I'm like, where's your next class? And she's like, oh, it's in this building. And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of going that same direction. I was not going that same direction. I was like, oh, I'm kind of going that same direction. And so I follow her, and we're talking, and we're both in education, obviously, because it's an education class, but some of the people there are secondary ed, some are elementary ed, and so so of course we ask her, and what's your major? What are you studying? And she says, oh, I'm studying elementary education, and I'm getting my minor in special education. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And she says, yeah, I really wanted to minor in music education, but they just don't offer that here. Because the thing about BYU Idaho is, like, it's not that they want to, like, get everybody out, but, like, they kind of want you to get through fast. They used to be a 2-year school, and I think they're still kind of in that mindset of, like, get here, get all your credits, go, leave, like, graduate, go to grad school, whatever, like, do what you need to and then get out of here. And so they don't have a credit limit. Like, you can take as many credits as you need, but they don't want you to plan for more than like 120 credits. And with education, like, it's such a credit heavy major that as an elementary education minor, major, your minor has to be education related, or you're not gonna be within the 120 credits. Like, it's gonna take too much. Because I was also going to minor in music, but to major in education and then minor in something else, you're just gonna be taking so many credits, and so they don't want you to do that. But if you're because I'm minoring in literacy education, so since there's overlap between my major and my minor, there are a bunch of classes that will count for both of them, and so it doesn't fill up the credits as fast. It still pretty much fills up the credits completely. Like, I think I've got like 5, maybe 4 elective credits free, and everything else is going toward my major and my minor to stay at that 120 credit limit, which is wild. Anyway, so she's like, oh, I wanted to minor in music, but you can't do that here at BYU Idaho, but they let you do it at BYU Provo. And so I was thinking, after my mission, I'm going to transfer and go to Provo. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You're going to Provo? And she's like, yep, I'm leaving. I probably won't be back to Idaho. I'll be going next semester. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's great. And she's like, oh, and like, I'm leaving on my mission too. And I was like, oh, like, when are you leaving on your mission? And she says, May. I was like 5th or something, which was in like 4 weeks. Basically the week after the semester got over, she was leaving. So I was like, well, that sucks. I guess this isn't gonna go anywhere. So I didn't ask for her phone number, and I never asked her out on a date because but like, it was fun conversation, and I continued to walk with her a couple of times because while I wasn't going the same direction as her, like, it got me going halfway to her class, also got me halfway to my class, but then she'd turn left and I'd turn right. So like, it wasn't that I was going the complete opposite direction. Anyway, so I kept walking with her, and we walked a couple of times, and we're continuing to talk, and it was all right. She's a fun person. But I was so conflicted And I was talking to all of my roommates and my friends and all the symbols, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, she's really cute, she's really fun, but she's leaving on a mission and then never coming back to Idaho, so I probably won't see her again ever. So is it worth it? Is it worth doing anything? And everybody is like, oh man, like, you can just date. Like, you don't have to date with the expectation of it turning into anything. You can just ask her out, just, go on a date or two for fun and just like get to know her and get practice in going on dates. And I was like, well, yeah, like, that all makes sense. But I just, I don't want to get too committed to something that's never going to happen. And because I know that, like, myself, I can get kind of really involved into things, especially maybe relationships. And I was like, I don't want to invest myself into something that's just never going to happen. And they're like, well, then just like, don't expect anything of it. Cause just like ask her out just for fun. Just go on a date, it'll be fine. And I was really conflicted for like a week. And that was basically all of week 11 was me getting advice from all these people. And finally I talked to Chris and his wife. So we met up kind of in the common area, in a building in the middle of campus. And I was talking to Chris and I told him the whole thing. And he was like, man, just ask her out on a date, get her number. Like, it's okay. Like, you don't have to, like, if you know it's not going to work out, then you can keep yourself from investing all your time and effort into it. And like, you can just go on a date for fun. Just get to know her. Just like go on a date. Just have fun. Like, you'll be fine. And I was like, I don't know. And then Chris's wife came and sat down and she was like, oh, what's going on? Like, what's up? And so I told her everything. And she was like, oh, well, it's okay to date people without any expectations. Like, dating can be just, go on dates, just get to know people. And I started explaining, I was like, but I just, I get really kind of invested in these sorts of things. And I don't want to, like, if I go on a date, I feel like, not that I'm expecting to get into a relationship, but if I'm going on a date, I'm obviously interested and hoping that maybe things will progress. And like, not that I'm like, let's get into a relationship right now, but if I'm asking you out on a date, that's obviously a possibility I'm keeping open for the future. So I, except for sometimes, like I was saying earlier, like going out, like with friends, especially to double with other people, like that's always been fine to me. Like, hey, my friend needs a double, let's you and I go. Cause that feels easier. Cause like, it's hard to find a date on short notice sometimes, but if we're friends, then obviously there's no expectations of it going anywhere further. And so that's different though, because this is a girl who I'm not friends with. I don't know her very well. I'm still getting to know her, and I'm asking, I've got a romantic interest. So I was like, I don't want to invest myself. And Chris's wife was like, oh, well then don't ask her out. Don't get her number. Like, your limits. If you don't want to ask her out, like, if you're too nervous about getting invested, then don't go out with her. And I felt so good about that. Hearing her say that, just instant relief washed over me. I was like, you're right. When you put it like that, it sounds so easy. It sounds so simple. Why didn't I think of that before? And everybody else's advice, everybody who gave me advice, it was good, and I get where you're coming from. And I think most of the time I'd agree with you, but I don't know. I guess it just wasn't working. And it took me having Chris's wife tell me, just listen to yourself, don't do it. When I was like, oh, you're right, let's not. And then, so that was that. And I moved on. That was good. And then week 12 was the whole meeting the girls that ended up being the backwards love triangle. Week 13 is when the love triangle thing happened, and then week 14 was the last week of semester, so it was just like testing days. And that was it. That is the recap of my winter semester and all the dating shenanigans that happened. Yeah, it was wild. I had good stories, nearly a story for every week, which was good. I really kept my roommates entertained. They were appreciative. And this is part of what got Chris to be so excited for me to start a podcast, because he's like, dude, every week you've got something new. Every week there's a new story. Just got to start a podcast so that you can keep these forever and show it to more people, because yeah, because even like calling some of my friends that live in Utah, or calling my family, my parents and my sisters, like I love calling them, but they sometimes aren't always willing for like a 2-hour phone call so I can tell them all the events of my week. So maybe this is kind of turning into an update for people as well, just to hear what's going on in my life. But yeah, there we go. That's the summary of my winter semester. So I hope you enjoyed. This is what inspired podcast, I guess. And here we are, episode 7 of podcast. So I think it's going well. Oh, that actually reminds me. Because like I said earlier, I'm working for FSY again this summer, which is going to involve a lot of traveling. I think maybe I'll still be able to record a little bit and send that out. But the thing about putting it onto YouTube is that it takes a little bit more, and I have to use my computer. And I don't really fancy the idea of carrying my computer all over the country with me all summer long. And then I also don't have time to put together the YouTube, even though it doesn't take that much. I just like put the audio in, put the picture in, but it still takes like 30 minutes to like upload, and sometimes like longer than that. I think the last one took forever because it was so long to get posted and show up, which is hard to do when I'm going to be in places sometimes without internet. I won't always have access to super great internet, and I won't have the time to record an episode and then process it and put it on YouTube. But Spotify is really easy because I can just do that from my phone. So I'll try to continue recording podcast episodes. Hopefully FSY gets me some good stories. There are some wild ones. I've got great ones from last year. So maybe we'll keep pushing one out every week or two. But they're going to be on Spotify. I'll eventually put them all on YouTube, but like I'll have like a week break at some point. And so maybe I'll upload some of them during that week break. But a lot of them probably won't get onto YouTube till the end of the summer, like August or whatever. So until then, if you want to stay updated weekly, which would surprise me because I can't imagine anybody listens to this every week. That would be weird. Anyway, but if you want to, it will probably be easier to keep up with on Spotify than YouTube. I'll try to get it on YouTube, but I just don't think it's going to work out during the summer. But Spotify I can do. So I'll continue recording, probably putting those on Spotify. And then when I get the chance to put them on YouTube, I'll just kind of do a mass upload for those of you who mostly listen on the YouTube. Anyway, I think that's everything. Bye.